The heavy wooden door of the mansion creaked open as Richard Harrison stepped inside his luxurious home. The successful tech entrepreneur had just returned from a 3-week business trip to Tokyo, his expensive leather briefcase still in hand. But what he saw next made his blood freeze and his heart stop beating for what felt like forever. There, in the middle of his once pristine living room, sat his 7-year-old daughter Lily. Her beautiful blonde hair was tangled and dirty, her small body trembling as she clutched her baby brother David tightly against her chest. The little girl's voice cracked with desperate sobs as she whispered the words that would haunt Richard for the rest of his life. "Please don't hurt me and my brother anymore." But who was she talking to? And why did his precious children look like they hadn't eaten or bathed in days? Where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The scene before Richard was like something from a nightmare. His daughter's once bright pink dress was now torn and stained with food and dirt. Baby David, only 10 months old, was crying weakly, his tiny face pale and thin. But the most shocking part was what Richard saw standing over them. His second wife, Patricia, held a wooden spoon high in the air, her face twisted with anger and hatred. The woman he had married just 2 years ago, the woman who had promised to love and care for his children, was about to strike his defenseless daughter. "How dare you touch my food, you little brat!" Patricia screamed, her voice filled with venom. "I told you and that crying baby that you get nothing until you clean this entire house." Richard's world came crashing down around him. The woman he trusted with his most precious treasures had been hurting them. But how long had this been going on? And why hadn't he seen the signs? Let's go back to where this nightmare began. 3 weeks earlier, Richard Harrison was known throughout New York as one of the youngest and most successful technology company owners in the city. At 35 years old, he had built an empire worth over $50 million. His company created apps and software that millions of people used every day. But despite all his success and money, Richard's greatest pride and joy were his 2 children. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, had inherited her mother's beautiful blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She was smart, funny, and always asked questions about everything around her. Baby David was his newest blessing, a chubby, happy baby who loved to laugh and play with his big sister. Richard's first wife, Jennifer, had died in a car accident when David was just 2 months old. The pain of losing his beloved wife had nearly destroyed him, but his children gave him strength to keep going. He knew Jennifer would want him to be the best father possible. That's when Patricia entered their lives. Patricia Collins was 32 years old, with long brown hair and green eyes that seemed to sparkle when she smiled. Richard met her at a business conference in Chicago. She worked as a marketing director for a big company and seemed very professional and kind. "I love children," Patricia had told him during their first dinner date. "I've always dreamed of having a family of my own." When Patricia met Lily and baby David for the first time, she seemed perfect. She brought Lily beautiful dolls and played games with her. She helped feed David his bottle and sang him lullabies. Richard thought he had found the perfect mother for his children and the perfect wife for himself. But people aren't always what they seem to be. After 6 months of dating, Richard proposed to Patricia during a romantic dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the city. She said yes with tears of joy in her eyes, and they were married 3 months later in a beautiful ceremony at Richard's mansion. For the first few months of marriage, everything seemed wonderful. Patricia cooked delicious meals, kept the house clean, and appeared to care for the children. But Richard was so busy with work that he didn't notice the small changes happening in his home. He didn't notice that Lily became quieter and more scared when Patricia was around. He didn't see how baby David would cry more often when his stepmother held him. Richard was too focused on providing for his family to see that his family was slowly being destroyed. The first real sign of trouble came about 6 months after the wedding. Richard had been working late at his office when he received a phone call from his neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. The elderly woman lived next door and had always been kind to his family. "Richard, dear," Mrs. Thompson said in a worried voice, "I've been hearing some strange noises coming from your house. Sounds like crying, lots of crying. Is everything all right?" "I'm sure everything is fine," Richard replied, though a small worry began growing in his chest. Patricia is probably just having a difficult time with the children. Taking care of a baby and a 7-year-old can be very stressful. Of course, dear, Mrs. Thompson said, but Richard could hear the concern in her voice. I just wanted to make sure. When Richard came home that night, the house was quiet and peaceful. Patricia greeted him with a warm smile and a kiss on the cheek. How were the children today? He asked. Oh, they were wonderful, Patricia replied sweetly. Lily helped me with some cleaning, and David took nice long naps. They're both sleeping peacefully now. Richard believed her completely. Why wouldn't he? This was his wife, the woman he trusted with his most precious gifts. But upstairs, in her small bedroom, Lily lay awake listening to every word. Her stomach hurt from hunger because Patricia had made her skip dinner as punishment for spilling juice on the carpet. Baby David was in his crib, crying softly because his diaper hadn't been changed for hours. Lily wanted to tell her daddy what was happening, but Patricia had warned her. If you ever tell your father lies about me, I will make sure you and that baby disappear forever. No one will ever find you. A 7-year-old doesn't understand that these are just threats meant to scare her. To Lily, Patricia's words were as real as the hunger in her stomach and the fear in her heart. The situation in the Harrison house was getting worse, but Patricia had become very clever at hiding her cruelty. During the day, when Richard was at work, Patricia would force Lily to do household chores that were much too difficult for a 7-year-old child. She made her scrub floors, wash dishes, and fold heavy laundry. If Lily couldn't do the work perfectly, Patricia would punish her by not giving her food or by making her stand in the corner for hours. Your father works very hard to pay for this house, Patricia would tell Lily coldly. The least you can do is help keep it clean. Children in other countries work much harder than this. Baby David suffered too. Patricia would leave him in his crib for hours without changing his diaper or feeding him properly. She would only take good care of him when she heard Richard's car in the driveway. The transformation was incredible to watch. The moment Patricia heard Richard coming home, she would quickly clean up David, give him a bottle, and pretend to be the most loving stepmother in the world. Hello, my darling husband, she would call out cheerfully when Richard walked through the door. The children and I had such a wonderful day together. Richard would see Lily sitting quietly at the dinner table and David sleeping peacefully in Patricia's arms. Everything looked perfect, so he never questioned what he saw. But children are not good at hiding their emotions for long periods of time. Lily began having nightmares almost every night. She would wake up screaming and crying, calling for her daddy. When Richard came to comfort her, Lily would try to tell him about the scary things happening during the day. Daddy, Patricia makes me work all day, and she doesn't give me food when I'm hungry. Lily would sob into her father's chest. Richard's heart broke hearing his daughter's words. But when he confronted Patricia about it, she had perfect explanations for everything. Oh, Richard, I think Lily is still having a hard time accepting me as her new mother, Patricia would say with fake sadness in her voice. She's been acting out a lot lately, telling stories and being defiant. I've been trying to teach her discipline and responsibility, but maybe she's seeing it as punishment. Patricia was very smart and manipulative. She knew exactly what to say to make Richard believe that Lily was just being a difficult child who was struggling with having a new stepmother. Children often make up stories when they're feeling confused or angry, Patricia continued. I read about it in a parenting book. The best thing we can do is be patient and consistent with our rules. Richard wanted to believe his daughter, but Patricia's explanations made sense to him. He had never been married to someone who would hurt children, so the idea seemed impossible to him. Surely the woman he loved would never harm his precious babies. Maybe we should take Lily to see a counselor, Richard suggested. Someone who can help her work through her feelings about our marriage. That's a wonderful idea, Patricia agreed quickly. I think professional help would be very good for her. But Patricia had no intention of letting Lily talk to any counselor. She just needed Richard to think she was being helpful and caring. The next morning, after Richard left for work, Patricia sat Lily down at the kitchen table for a very serious talk. Listen to me very carefully, you little brat, Patricia said in a cold, threatening voice. If you ever tell anyone, your father, a doctor, a teacher, anyone, about what happens in this house, I will hurt baby David. Do you understand me? Lily's eyes filled with tears of terror. She loved her baby brother more than anything in the world. I will tell everyone that you hurt him, Patricia continued. I will say that you were jealous of the baby and that you tried to hurt him. Who do you think people will believe, a grown-up or a 7-year-old child? The threat worked perfectly. From that day forward, Lily stopped trying to tell her father the truth. She was too scared that something terrible would happen to David. Richard noticed that Lily seemed to be getting better. She stopped having so many nightmares and stopped complaining about Patricia. He thought this meant his daughter was finally adjusting to their new family situation. But the truth was much more frightening. 3 weeks before that horrible day when Richard would discover the truth, he received an urgent call from his business partners in Tokyo. Their biggest client was threatening to cancel a contract worth $20 million. And Richard was the only person who could fix the situation. I'm sorry, sweetheart, Richard told Patricia as he packed his suitcase. I know this is terrible timing, but I have to go to Japan immediately. This contract could save or destroy our company. Don't worry about us, Patricia replied with a sweet smile. The children and I will be perfectly fine. You focus on your work, and we'll take care of everything here. Richard hugged Lily tightly before he left. Be good for Patricia while Daddy is gone, he whispered in her ear. I'll bring you back something special from Japan. Lily wanted to scream, Don't leave me alone with her, but she remembered Patricia's threats about baby David. Instead, she just hugged her father tighter and whispered, I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess, Richard replied. I'll call you every day. As soon as Richard's car disappeared down the long driveway, Patricia's fake smile vanished completely. Finally, she said coldly, turning to look at Lily with eyes full of hatred. Now we can stop pretending to be a happy family. What happened over the next 3 weeks would be the darkest period in young Lily's life. Without Richard there to witness her behavior, Patricia let her true nature show completely. She treated Lily like a servant and baby David like he was nothing more than an annoying burden. Patricia would sleep until noon every day while the children went hungry. She would order expensive food for herself but give Lily only small pieces of bread and water. Baby David's bottles were often spoiled because Patricia was too lazy to prepare fresh formula. Your father isn't here to protect you now, Patricia would tell Lily every morning. You will do exactly what I say when I say it, or you and that crying baby will be very sorry. The beautiful mansion that had once been filled with love and laughter became a prison for 2 innocent children. Lily tried to take care of baby David as best as she could. When Patricia wasn't looking, she would sneak into the kitchen to find crackers or fruit to share with her brother. She would change his diaper when Patricia forgot to do it, even though she was too small to do it properly. But a 7-year-old child can only do so much. Every evening at exactly 7 o'clock, Richard would call home to talk to his children. These phone calls became the only bright moments in Lily's dark days. But Patricia was always standing right next to the phone, listening to every word Lily said. Hi, Daddy, Lily would say, trying to sound happy even though her stomach was empty and her heart was breaking. Hello, my princess. How are you doing? Are you being good for Patricia? Lily would look at Patricia's threatening face and feel the words of truth trying to escape from her mouth. She wanted to scream, Daddy, please come home. Patricia is hurting us. We're hungry and scared and we need you. But then she would see Patricia making threatening gestures toward baby David's crib, and fear would close her throat. I'm being very good, Daddy, Lily would lie. Patricia is taking good care of us. That's wonderful to hear, Richard would reply, relief clear in his voice. Is David doing well too? Yes, Daddy. He's sleeping right now. This was usually true because David had become weak and tired from not eating enough. But Richard thought it meant his son was healthy and content. Can I talk to Patricia for a moment? Richard would ask. Of course. Patricia would take the phone with a big fake smile on her face. Richard, darling, everything is going perfectly here, She would lie smoothly. The children are being so well behaved. Lily has been helping me with chores, and David is growing so quickly. We miss you terribly, but we're managing just fine. You're amazing, Patricia, Richard would say. I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll be home as soon as I can. After hanging up the phone, Patricia's sweet voice would disappear immediately. See how easy it is to lie? She would tell Lily coldly. Your father believes everything I say because he trusts me. He will never believe you over me. These phone calls tortured Lily's heart. Every night, she would lie in her bed crying quietly, wishing she could tell her father the truth. But the fear of what might happen to baby David kept her silent. By the third week of Richard's trip, both children were in terrible condition. Lily had lost so much weight that her clothes hung loose on her small body. Her blonde hair was dirty and tangled because Patricia wouldn't let her use the nice bathroom upstairs. Dark circles had formed under her bright blue eyes from crying and not sleeping well. Baby David was even worse. He had developed a rash from wearing dirty diapers for too long. He cried weakly throughout the day because he was hungry, but Patricia would just ignore him or yell at him to be quiet. I can't stand that crying anymore, Patricia screamed one morning when David wouldn't stop crying. Why can't you make him shut up? He's hungry, Lily said quietly. He needs milk. He just had a bottle an hour ago. Patricia lied. David's last bottle had been the night before, and it had been made with spoiled formula that made his stomach hurt. Please, Lily begged. He's just a baby. He needs food and clean clothes. Patricia's anger exploded like a volcano. How dare you tell me how to take care of children? She screamed, grabbing Lily by the arm roughly. I'm the adult here. You're nothing but a spoiled brat who thinks she knows everything. That day, Patricia made a decision that would lead to the shocking moment when Richard finally discovered the truth. She decided that she was tired of pretending to care about the children, even during their phone calls with Richard. I'm done with both of you, Patricia told Lily that evening. Your father will be home tomorrow, but before he gets here, you're going to learn exactly who's in charge of this house. Patricia locked Lily and baby David in the living room with no food and no clean clothes. She told them they would stay there until they learned to respect her properly. If you make any noise, if you try to leave this room, if you do anything I don't like, you'll be sorry, Patricia threatened. Tomorrow, when your father comes home, you're going to tell him what a wonderful mother I've been. If you don't, something very bad will happen to both of you. That night was the longest, darkest night of Lily's young life. She held baby David close to her chest, trying to comfort him as he cried from hunger and pain. She whispered stories to him and sang the lullabies their real mother used to sing before she died. Don't worry, David, Lily whispered. Daddy will be home tomorrow. Maybe everything will be better then. But deep in her heart, Lily was afraid that even when their father came home, nothing would change. Patricia was very good at pretending to be nice when Richard was around. Richard's flight landed at JFK Airport at 10 o'clock in the morning. He was exhausted from 3 weeks of difficult business meetings, but his heart was excited to see his children again. The contract negotiations in Tokyo had been successful. His company was safe, and he had even signed 2 new deals that would bring in millions more dollars. But all Richard could think about was hugging his daughter and son. He had bought wonderful gifts for both children. For Lily, he had found a beautiful kimono and a set of Japanese dolls that could be dressed in different outfits. For baby David, he had bought soft stuffed animals and colorful toys that made gentle musical sounds. But the best gift he was bringing home was himself. Richard had decided during his long flight that he was never going to leave his children for such a long time again. He had been working too much and missing too many important moments with them. From now on, family comes first. He had promised himself as his plane crossed the Pacific Ocean. As Richard's taxi pulled into the circular driveway of his mansion, he noticed something strange. The house looked darker than usual, and some of the flowers in his garden were dying from not being watered. That's odd, he thought to himself. Patricia usually takes such good care of the house and garden. He paid the taxi driver and walked up to his front door, excitement building in his chest. He couldn't wait to surprise his family by coming home early. Richard put his key in the lock and slowly opened the door. "Patricia? Lily? I'm home," he called out happily. But instead of hearing excited voices welcoming him home, Richard heard something that made his blood turn to ice in his veins. He heard his daughter's voice, broken with sobs, pleading desperately, "Please don't hurt me and my brother anymore." What Richard saw next would change everything forever. There was his precious 7-year-old daughter, sitting on the living room floor in a filthy, torn dress. Her beautiful blonde hair was tangled and dirty, her face thin and pale. In her small arms, she held baby David, who looked weak and sick. And standing over them, with a wooden spoon raised high in the air, was Patricia, the woman he had trusted with his most precious treasures. "How dare you touch my food, you little brat?" Patricia was screaming. "I told you and that crying baby that you get nothing until you clean this entire house." The wooden spoon was coming down toward his daughter's head when Richard's shocked voice exploded through the mansion like thunder. "Patricia, what the hell are you doing to my children?" The wooden spoon froze in midair. Patricia's face turned white with terror as she spun around to see her husband standing in the doorway, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. Lily looked up at her father with eyes full of tears and hope. "Daddy?" she whispered, as if she couldn't believe he was really there. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence in that mansion was so complete that Richard could hear his own heart pounding in his chest like a drum. Then Patricia dropped the wooden spoon, and it clattered to the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo forever. "Richard," she gasped, "you're home early. I can explain." But there was no explanation that could make sense of what Richard had just witnessed. His children, his beautiful, innocent children, looked like they had been starved and neglected for weeks. And the woman he had married, the woman he had trusted to be their mother, had been about to beat his 7-year-old daughter with a piece of wood. The rage that exploded in Richard's chest was unlike anything he had ever felt in his life. This was not just anger. This was the fury of a father whose cubs had been hurt by a predator. "Get away from them!" Richard roared, his voice so loud that it shook the windows of the house. Patricia stumbled backward, her face full of fear. She had never seen Richard look like this. His usually kind eyes were now filled with a rage so intense that it was frightening. "Now!" Richard shouted again, moving toward his children. Patricia ran from the living room like a scared animal, her footsteps echoing through the house as she fled upstairs. Richard fell to his knees beside his children, his hands shaking as he reached out to touch them gently. "Daddy's here," he whispered, his voice now soft and full of pain. "Daddy's here, and everything is going to be okay." But as Richard looked closely at his son and daughter, he realized that this was just the beginning of discovering the horrible truth about what had happened in his house while he was gone. And Patricia, hiding upstairs in their bedroom, was frantically trying to figure out how she was going to convince Richard that what he had seen wasn't what it looked like. The battle for the truth was about to begin. Richard's hands trembled as he gently touched his daughter's face. Lily's skin felt cold and thin, like paper that might tear if he wasn't careful. Baby David's weak crying broke his heart into a million pieces. "My babies," Richard whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "What has she done to you?" Lily looked up at her father with eyes that had seen too much pain for a 7-year-old child. She wanted to tell him everything, but Patricia's threats still echoed in her mind like scary monsters. "Daddy," she whispered so quietly that Richard had to lean close to hear her. "Are you really here? Are you going to stay?" The question hit Richard like a punch to the stomach. His daughter was asking if he would stay because she had been abandoned and hurt while he was gone. The guilt crashed over him like a giant wave. "Yes, princess," he said firmly, fighting back tears. "Daddy is here, and I'm never leaving you again." Richard carefully lifted baby David from Lily's arms. The 10-month-old baby felt much lighter than he should. His little face was pale, and his diaper was so dirty that it made Richard feel sick to his stomach. "When did you last eat?" Richard asked Lily gently. Lily thought carefully. Time had become confusing during the long, hungry days. I think Yesterday morning, she said, Patricia gave me a small piece of bread. But David hasn't had a good bottle in 2 days. The milk she gave him tasted bad and made him cry. Richard's jaw clenched so tightly that his teeth hurt. The woman upstairs had been starving his children while he was working to provide for their family. Okay, sweetheart, Richard said, trying to keep his voice calm so he wouldn't scare his daughter more. We're gonna get you both cleaned up and fed right now. Can you walk? Lily tried to stand up, but her legs were shaky and weak. Richard quickly scooped her up in his other arm, holding both of his children against his chest. I've got you both, he said. You're safe now. As Richard carried his children toward the kitchen, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Patricia was coming down, and she had changed her strategy completely. Richard, honey, Patricia called out in a sweet, fake voice. I'm so glad you're home. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Richard stopped walking and turned to face his wife. Patricia had quickly brushed her hair and put on a clean dress. She was trying to look like the perfect housewife again. A misunderstanding? Richard repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. I saw you about to hit my daughter with a wooden spoon. Oh, that. Patricia laughed nervously. I was just trying to discipline her. She had been very naughty while you were gone, and I was at my wit's end. You know how children can be when they're testing boundaries. Richard stared at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. How had he never noticed how fake her smile looked? How had he missed the coldness in her eyes? Naughty? Richard asked. Look at them, Patricia. Look at my children. He turned slightly so Patricia could see Lily's thin face and David's pale, sick appearance. They look like they haven't eaten or been cared for in weeks, Richard continued, his voice getting louder. How is that the result of discipline? Patricia's fake smile flickered, but she quickly put it back in place. Children often look dramatic when they're being defiant, she said smoothly. Lily has been refusing to eat the healthy meals I've been making. She only wants junk food and sweets. I've been trying to teach her proper nutrition. The lie was so outrageous that Richard almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. She refused to eat, Richard asked. My daughter, who has never been a picky eater in her entire life, suddenly decided to starve herself? Some children go through phases, Patricia replied, but her voice was starting to sound less confident. I read about it in parenting magazines. The best thing to do is stay firm and not give in to their demands. Richard looked down at Lily, who was listening to every word. His daughter's eyes were filled with tears, but she still looked too scared to speak. Is that true, Lily? Richard asked gently. Did you refuse to eat the food Patricia made for you? Lily glanced nervously at Patricia, then back at her father. The fear in her eyes told Richard everything he needed to know, but he waited for her to find her courage. She didn't make food for us, Lily whispered. She ate good food, but she only gave me tiny pieces of bread. And David's bottles. They were old and tasted yucky. Patricia's face turned red with anger. She's lying, Patricia snapped, her sweet voice finally cracking. Children make up stories when they want attention. She's been jealous of the time I spend taking care of the baby, so she's trying to turn you against me. But Richard was no longer listening to Patricia's explanations. He was looking at the evidence right in front of him. His children were clearly malnourished and neglected. Their clothes were dirty and torn. Baby David had a severe diaper rash that could only come from not being changed for long periods of time. And Lily looked like she had been carrying the weight of the world on her 7-year-old shoulders. Take off your shirt, Richard suddenly said to Patricia. What? Patricia looked confused and angry. If you've been taking care of my children properly, if you've been feeding them and cleaning them and loving them like you claim, then you should look tired and worn out too, Richard explained coldly. Taking care of 2 children is hard work. So take off your shirt and show me your arms. Patricia's eyes widened with panic. She knew exactly what Richard would see, or rather what he wouldn't see. A person who spends their days caring for children gets dirty. They get food stains on their clothes from feeding babies. They get soap on their hands from giving baths. They have tired, worn-out appearances from the constant work of childcare. But Patricia's clothes were clean and expensive. Her nails were perfectly manicured. Her hair was styled like she had just come from a beauty salon. She looked like a woman who had been relaxing and pampering herself, not like someone who had been caring for two small children. I don't have to prove anything to you," Patricia stammered. "I'm your wife. You should trust me." "Trust?" Richard's voice exploded with anger. "You want me to trust you? After what I just witnessed?" Richard carefully set Lily down on a kitchen chair and placed baby David in his high chair. Then he turned to face Patricia with the full force of his rage. "I trusted you with the most important things in my life," Richard said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I gave you my children. I gave you my home. I gave you my love. And you repaid that trust by torturing innocent babies." "I never tortured anyone," Patricia shouted back. "You're being dramatic. All I did was try to teach them some discipline and responsibility." "Discipline?" Richard laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call starving a 10-month-old baby? Is that what you call making a 7-year-old do household chores that are too difficult for her tiny hands?" Patricia's face went pale. She hadn't expected Richard to know about the chores. "How did you?" she started to ask, then stopped herself. "How did I know?" Richard finished her question. "Because I'm not stupid, Patricia. I can see the evidence everywhere." Richard pointed around the kitchen and living room. "The house is too clean," he continued. "Too perfect. No 7-year-old child naturally cleans this well unless they're being forced to do it. And look at Lily's hands." Richard gently took his daughter's small hands in his own and showed them to Patricia. Lily's hands were red and rough, with small cuts and calluses that shouldn't exist on a child's skin. "These are the hands of someone who has been scrubbing floors and washing dishes," Richard said. "These are the hands of a child who has been treated like a servant." Patricia tried one more desperate lie. She wanted to help. Patricia insisted. She begged me to let her do chores. She said she wanted to be a big girl and help take care of the house. This time, Lily found her courage. "That's not true," the 7-year-old said, her small voice growing stronger with each word. "You made me do all the work. You said if I didn't clean everything perfectly, you would hurt David." "She's lying," Patricia screamed, pointing at Lily. "She's a manipulative little brat who—" "Enough!" Richard roared so loudly that the dishes in the cabinets rattled. The kitchen fell silent except for baby David's soft crying. Richard walked slowly toward Patricia, his eyes burning with a fury she had never seen before. "Pack your things," he said in a voice that was quiet but more terrifying than any scream. "Pack your things right now and get out of my house." "Richard, please." Patricia suddenly switched back to her fake sweet voice. "Let's talk about this calmly. We can work through this misunderstanding. I love you and the children. We're a family." "Family?" Richard repeated the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. "You think what you did to my children is what families do to each other?" "Every family has problems," Patricia said desperately. "Every marriage goes through difficult times. But we can get counseling. We can fix this." Richard stared at his wife for a long moment, then shook his head. "There is no fixing this," he said. "There is no counseling that can undo what you've done. You starved my children. You terrorized them. You made them afraid in their own home." Richard's voice grew stronger and more determined with each word. "A real mother would die before letting harm come to her children. A real wife would call me immediately if she was struggling to care for them. But you're not a real mother and you're not a real wife. You're a predator who saw an opportunity to hurt innocent victims." Patricia's mask finally fell completely away. The fake sweetness disappeared, and her true nature showed through. "Fine," she snarled, her face twisted with hatred. "You want the truth? Here's the truth. I never wanted your brat children. I only married you for your money." Richard felt like he had been slapped, but he wasn't surprised. Deep down, he had started to suspect this. "I thought I could tolerate them until they were old enough to go away to boarding school," Patricia continued cruelly. "But they were so annoying, always crying and needing attention. so I decided to teach them to stay out of my way. By starving them, Richard said flatly. By showing them who was in charge. Patricia replied. Children need to learn respect. They need to understand that the world doesn't revolve around them. They're babies, Richard said, his voice full of pain. Lily is 7 years old. David is 10 months old. They're babies who needed love and care, and instead you gave them fear and hunger. Patricia laughed coldly. Love doesn't pay for mansions and expensive cars, she said. Love doesn't buy designer clothes and jewelry. I wanted the lifestyle that your money could give me. The children were just obstacles in my way. The confession hit Richard like a physical blow. This woman had never loved him or his children. She had seen them as nothing more than a way to get rich. But it doesn't matter now, Patricia continued with an evil smile. You can throw me out, but I'm still legally your wife. I'm entitled to half of everything you own. Your house, your company, your bank accounts, half of it all belongs to me. Richard smiled then, and his smile was even more frightening than his anger had been. Actually, he said calmly, you're not entitled to anything. Patricia's confident expression faltered. What are you talking about? She demanded. Before I married you, my lawyer advised me to have you sign a prenuptial agreement, Richard explained. Do you remember that document you signed without reading carefully? The one you were so eager to sign because you thought it was just a formality? Patricia's face turned white as she remembered. That prenuptial agreement states very clearly that if our marriage ends due to abuse or neglect of my children, you forfeit all claims to any of my assets, Richard continued. You get nothing, not one penny. The realization hit Patricia like a truck. She had been so focused on getting Richard to marry her quickly that she hadn't paid attention to the legal documents she was signing. You can't prove abuse, Patricia said desperately. It's just the word of a 7-year-old child against mine. Richard pulled out his cell phone. Mrs. Thompson, he said when his elderly neighbor answered the phone. This is Richard Harrison. Could you please come over to my house right now? And could you bring your camera? Patricia looked confused and worried. Who is Mrs. Thompson? She asked. My neighbor, Richard replied. The same neighbor who called me several months ago because she was hearing children crying from our house. The same neighbor who has been watching you through her window and taking pictures of what she saw. The color drained completely from Patricia's face. She's been watching me? Mrs. Thompson is a retired teacher who worked with abused children for 40 years, Richard explained. She knows the signs of child abuse when she sees them, and she's been documenting everything she witnessed while I was gone. Within 5 minutes, Mrs. Thompson arrived at the front door. She was a small, elderly woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her face was serious and determined. Oh, Richard, she said sadly when she saw the condition of his children. I should have done more. I should have called the police. You did enough, Richard assured her. Can you show Patricia the pictures you took? Mrs. Thompson pulled out a digital camera and began showing the photos on its small screen. The pictures were devastating evidence of Patricia's cruelty. There were photos of Lily struggling to carry heavy laundry baskets that were bigger than she was. There were pictures of Patricia eating expensive takeout food while the children got nothing. There were images of baby David crying in his crib for hours while Patricia ignored him completely. I took over 200 photographs, Mrs. Thompson said quietly. Every day, I watched that poor little girl working like a slave while that baby cried from hunger. It broke my heart. Patricia stared at the camera in horror. The evidence against her was overwhelming and undeniable. This is illegal, she stammered. You can't take pictures of me without my permission. Actually, I can, Mrs. Thompson replied calmly. When I see children being abused, I'm legally required to document it and report it to the authorities. I'm what's called a mandated reporter. Richard turned back to Patricia with cold determination in his eyes. So here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to pack your things and leave my house immediately. You will never contact me or my children again. And if you ever try to claim any of my money or property, I will have you arrested for child abuse. You can't do this to me, Patricia screamed, her composure completely gone. I gave up my career for you. I gave up my apartment. I have nothing without you. You should have thought about that before you decided to torture innocent children, Richard replied without sympathy. Please, Patricia begged, her voice becoming desperate. Give me another chance. I can change. I can be a better mother to them. Richard looked at his children. Lily was watching everything with wide, scared eyes. Baby David had finally stopped crying and was sleeping fitfully in his high chair, exhausted from hunger and neglect. There are no second chances when it comes to my children's safety, Richard said firmly. You had 3 weeks to show who you really are, and you chose to be a monster. Patricia realized that begging wasn't going to work. Her face hardened with anger and hatred. Fine, she snarled, but don't think this is over. I'll find a way to make you pay for this humiliation. Are you threatening me? Richard asked dangerously. I'm promising you, Patricia replied with venom in her voice. Richard pulled out his phone again and started recording. Could you repeat that threat, please? He asked. I want to make sure the police hear it clearly when I file the restraining order against you. Patricia realized she had made a terrible mistake. Threatening someone on video would only make her legal situation worse. I didn't mean that, she said quickly. I'm just upset. I'm not thinking clearly. You have 30 minutes to pack your things and leave, Richard said, ending the recording. If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the police to have you arrested for child abuse, neglect, and criminal threats. Patricia ran upstairs to pack, her high heels clicking frantically on the marble steps. Richard turned his attention back to his children. Mrs. Thompson, he said, would you mind helping me get them cleaned up and fed while Patricia is packing? Of course, dear, the elderly woman replied with tears in her eyes. These poor babies need immediate care. For the next 30 minutes, Richard and Mrs. Thompson worked together to begin healing the damage that Patricia had done. They gave both children warm baths with gentle soap. They treated baby David's severe diaper rash with medicine. They combed the tangles out of Lily's hair and dressed her in clean, comfortable clothes. Most importantly, they fed them. Richard prepared a bottle of fresh, warm formula for David, and the baby drank it so eagerly that it broke his father's heart. Lily ate a bowl of soup and some crackers, her small stomach unable to handle large amounts of food after days of starvation. Slowly, princess, Richard said gently. We don't want to make your tummy sick by eating too much too fast. As they were finishing, they heard Patricia dragging suitcases down the stairs. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face red with anger and her hair messy from packing quickly. I'm leaving, she announced coldly. But this isn't over, Richard. You'll be sorry for the way you treated me today. The only thing I'm sorry about, Richard replied, is that I didn't see who you really were sooner. I'm sorry that I trusted you with my children's lives. Patricia looked at Lily and David one last time, and there was no love or regret in her eyes. There was only annoyance and anger, like they were objects that had caused her problems. Goodbye, Richard, she said. I hope your precious children were worth losing me. They were worth everything, Richard replied without hesitation. They always were. Patricia grabbed her suitcases and walked out the front door. The sound of the door slamming shut was the most beautiful sound Richard had ever heard. Mrs. Thompson put her hand on Richard's shoulder. You did the right thing, she said softly. Those children are safe now. Richard looked at his son and daughter. They were clean and fed, but he could see that the emotional damage would take much longer to heal. Daddy, Lily said quietly, is Patricia really gone forever? Yes, princess, Richard replied, sitting down and pulling her onto his lap. She's never coming back. It's just us now, you, me, and David. We're a family, and families protect each other. I tried to protect David, Lily said, tears starting to flow. But I was too little. I couldn't make Patricia be nice to us. Richard's heart broke all over again as he realized what his daughter had been carrying inside her heart. Oh, sweetheart, he whispered, holding her tightly. Protecting David wasn't your job. That was my job, and I failed you both. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you. You were working, Lily said simply. You were far away. That's no excuse, Richard replied. A father's most important job is keeping his children safe and happy. I let work become more important than you, and I will never forgive myself for that. Richard made a promise to his children and to himself that night. From now on, he said, family comes first, always. I'm never leaving you alone with anyone again until you're old enough to protect yourselves. And even then, I'll always be watching out for you. Over the next few weeks, Richard kept that promise. He hired a kind, experienced nanny named Helen who came with excellent references from families Richard knew personally. But even with Helen's help, Richard made sure he was home every evening for dinner and bedtime. He took Lily and David to see a doctor who confirmed that they were malnourished but would recover completely with proper care and nutrition. He also took Lily to see a counselor who specialized in helping children heal from traumatic experiences. Slowly, day by day, Richard watched his children begin to heal. Lily's nightmares gradually became less frequent. Her appetite returned, and she began gaining back the weight she had lost. Most importantly, she began laughing and playing again like a normal 7-year-old child. Baby David grew stronger and happier. His rash healed, and he began sleeping through the night again. He learned to smile and babble at his father and sister. Richard also made changes to his business. He promoted several employees and hired additional managers so that he wouldn't have to travel as much. When business trips were absolutely necessary, he kept them as short as possible and made sure Helen stayed overnight at the house. Patricia tried to contact Richard several times through lawyers, but each attempt was unsuccessful. The prenuptial agreement was ironclad, and the evidence of child abuse made her legal position hopeless. Eventually, she moved to another state and never bothered them again. 6 months after Patricia left, Richard was sitting in his living room watching Lily play with her dolls while David crawled around on a soft blanket nearby. "Daddy?" Lily said suddenly, looking up from her toys. "Are you going to get married again?" The question surprised Richard. He hadn't even thought about dating since Patricia left. "I don't know, princess," he said honestly. "Would that worry you?" Lily thought carefully before answering. "If you married someone who was really, really nice to me and David, it might be okay," she said. "But if you married someone mean like Patricia, it would be very scary." Richard got down on the floor next to his daughter and looked into her eyes. "Lily, I want you to make me a promise," he said seriously. "What kind of promise?" "Promise me that if anyone at all, ever makes you scared or uncomfortable or hurts you in any way, you will tell me immediately," Richard said. "Even if they say they'll hurt David, even if they say bad things will happen, you tell me right away, and I will handle it." "But what if?" Lily started to ask. "No what ifs," Richard interrupted gently. "There is nothing more important to me than keeping you and your brother safe. Nothing. Do you understand?" Lily nodded solemnly. "I promise, Daddy." "Good girl," Richard said, hugging her tightly. As Richard held his daughter and watched his son playing happily on the floor, he thought about how close he had come to losing them forever. Patricia's cruelty could have broken their spirits permanently. The neglect and abuse could have damaged them in ways that never healed. If he had stayed away just a few more days, something even worse might have happened. But they had survived. They were together, they were safe, and they were healing. Richard had learned the most important lesson of his life. No amount of money, no business deal, no career success was worth risking the safety and happiness of his children. From that day forward, Richard Harrison lived by a simple rule: family first, always. And Lily and David grew up knowing, without any doubt, that their father would always protect them and that they could tell him anything without fear. The nightmare was over, the healing had begun, and their real life as a family could finally start again. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The end.